Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday, the last Monday in June. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's Jack and Keith Weekend Playbook. I welcome in my co-host, Boxing Hall of Fame writer and Michael Spink's biographer, Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack.
Hey, good, Keith. Good morning.
Hope this Monday's treating you well. Get ready for the heat. It's going to be a hot one. It's going to be hot in the city, I'm sure.
Whoa. Are you talking about the Miami Heat being a threat to the next guy? Is that what you mean? Because of the deal getting Giannis? Is that what you mean? Get ready for the Heat? I think there's some underlying thoughts of that.
Maybe.
You're trying to be a little cute to cover your tracks, but that's what you really mean.
I'm actually talking about the 100-degree heat I got to play golf in this week. But that's just my problem. First world problems, you know what I mean? Listen, we got some things to talk about. We haven't talked a lot of baseball in recent weeks because of the plethora of basketball news, including the Knicks winning the championship. But we do have a baseball season going on. And the Yankees, listen, I know that they've kind of survived Judge's absence, but getting swept by the Red Sox anytime is not good. And getting swept by this Red Sox team that is not very good is even worse. And the Yankees were pathetic this weekend. They showed no gumption, it felt like, until the ninth inning last night. And then they find a way to tie that game in the ninth inning, go ahead in extra innings, and still lose the game. The offense is collapsing here and before our eyes. The pitching is pitched really well. And this team, again, I don't want to be a sky is falling kind of guy, but this is a nightmare of a weekend for the Yankees.
Yeah, it is a nightmare of a weekend, and the Yankees really have played very poorly as of late. And I know I was giving you a few digs when the Yankees went back in first place. I mean, a game behind Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is absolutely no threat at all to win the
5 in a row again
over the Yankees. They're one game ahead. They're absolutely no threat at all. But Tampa Bay might hold on. They're like a marathoner who might hold on to the 18, 19-mile point in the race, and you might think, oh, it's getting close, they're up there, but in reality, it has a long way to go. And Tampa Bay's not built to really win the division. Now we're seeing the Aaron Judge effect. No one was talking about it in the beginning because the Yankees had enough bats. They were well-balanced enough to get by for a while without Aaron Judge. But now the Yankees really, really miss him. And, they miss Giancarlo Stanton to an extent, too. And Max Fried, when you think of it, that's three big,
the pitching weapons
in there.
You're always going to miss a Max Fried.
But the Achilles heel for the Yankees could be the depth in the bullpen, which we thought could be a strength in the beginning of the year. Cruz was awful yesterday and losing the game.
Terrible.
Can we really trust Duvall in middle relief? Tim Hill has had an off year. He just hasn't been good. Bednar's been good, thankfully. But something about Bednar, you don't get the feeling he's necessarily a lights-out closer, even though he did well yesterday. No, he's not, but he's pitched well all in all.
Yeah.
But an ideal situation, having a deep bullpen would have been having a guy like Edwin Diaz, for example, as the closer, and Bednar is your primary middle reliever. That would have been a powerful type of bullpen. But Bednar can get the job done as a closer. If push comes to shove. But the middle relief just, that was pitching, which was good early in the year, just hasn't been good as of late. And the Yankees have stopped hitting. They haven't gotten timely hits.
That's the key. I mean, that's the key to this team. Their pitching is going to be good enough. You mentioned Fried, and interestingly enough, I mean, you always miss a Max Fried, don't get me wrong. But guys have stepped up and pitched well in that rotation. Cole coming back has been a big lift. He's struggled a little bit the last couple times out, but he'll be fine. But it's the bats. And again, I begrudgingly will tell you that, yes, they miss Stanton right now because nobody on the right-hand side of this lineup is hitting worth a darn. And they find ways to lose games. And listen, I was looking at some scores from the past 2 weeks. They scored more than 4 runs. They haven't scored 4 runs once in the last 2 weeks. You're not going to win consistently like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least you're not putting down Aaron Boone because you see the Yankees are very aggressive they're very aggressive on the base paths. They're doing things to force the issue to win games. They're being aggressive. They're not just laying back. But yesterday, I mean, the Red Sox defense, by the way, was awful yesterday. Some of those plays made it look awful. It wasn't big league caliber. But the Yankees' loss yesterday, for example, was straightforward. Cruz was awful in the bullpen, when he had to lock down the save, at the end of the game. And it's that simple. And if you're not going to hit, your starting pitching could be really, really good, which the Yankees this starting pitching is going to be really superb the rest of the year because assuming everyone is healthy, you're going to have Max Fried. He's going to be good. Cole's going to be good. Schlitter's outstanding. Rondon could be a little iffy at times, but all in all, he's good.
Up and down.
And Warren, is decent as a fifth starter. So I wouldn't worry about that. And if you have Stanton and Judge back, the bats are going to wake up, and the rest of the guys will be fine as well. Goldschmidt gave the Yankees an unexpected lift
2 months
after Judge went out. An unexpected lift. Is he going to come down to earth a little bit, or is he going to be more like the same former MVP Goldschmidt, going forward the rest of the year? And Volpe's been decent coming back. You got to give him his props. We had a big question mark was hanging over Volpe's head because he struggled a little in the minors after struggling at the end of last year. But Volpe's been fine. He's been aggressive on the bases. He's made things happen. He's been decent defensively, and his bat's been okay.
He's not the reason for any of these Yankee struggles for sure. I mean, this is a team wide thing, and they do need. You speaking of Goldschmidt, by the way. I think Boone's going to have to considering the way the catchers are hitting, he may have to consider playing Rice behind the plate a little more, and maybe Goldschmidt at first base. Yeah. And if he continues to hit, he's still.
Well, it's up to Wells. It's in Wells' hands. If Wells starts hitting a little more, then fine. You want Wells behind the plate, not Rice.
I agree.
But if Wells is going to be hitting 180, not getting on base, not drawing walks, you might not have much of an alternative.
He can't be an
kind of like in the movie, like For Love of Game. They went to Billy Chappell and told him his catcher, remember, they got to replace him. He's just not hitting, I
love that movie, and you're like the only guy besides me that ever references it. I love that movie. It's a great movie. Guys, catch it if you haven't. Kevin Costner.
No, they asked David Cohn. The movie came up in the broadcast booth. And he said, that's the story of my life. Because as we know, David Cohn pitched the perfect game. Yeah. David Cohn was kind of hinting he was in a relationship like that, kind of indirectly by saying the story of my life.
I wonder how his wife felt.
Yeah, wow.
Listen, a couple other things with this series this weekend. Again, the Yankees weren't good. But the little benches clearing thing Friday night, Wilson Contreras is like a punk because he's gotten hit 6 times by one pitcher. Brandon Woodruff from the Brewers has hit him 6 times. He hangs out over the plate. Boone was absolutely right in that postgame when he's talking about, I don't know what we're supposed to do. We can't pitch a guy inside, and he gets all ticked off and starts a whole, didn't turn into a melee. It's just a baseball scrum. But this guy, if you're going to hang out over the plate, you're going to get pitched inside and you're going to get hit. What is wrong with ball players today? They don't expect to get pitched inside. It's nonsense.
I mean, there's a difference between deliberately throwing at a guy and a guy getting hit with a pitch is inside. Certain players do get deliberately hit. And my feeling is if a pitcher deliberately hits the batter, okay, unless the extenuating circumstances are so great that it calls for it, I would clamp down on that pitch as something bad. I'm talking about 20-game suspensions. I'm not fooling around because it's very dangerous to hit a guy with a baseball.
elbow is over the plate every
Oh,
single
no,
time.
no,
he sets up.
in his case, fine. But I'd say another thing. If he has a hissy fit, which he had, and he initiates players running in from the bullpen and that whole thing, I'd suspend them a couple of games. I would suspend them. I would have a thing in Major League Baseball, what they do in the NBA. You leave the bench. You're suspended a while, meaning you get out of the dugout. I mean, remember the famous Nick Heat game? And this was the most ridiculous, idiotic rule. If a player stood up, not moved onto the court,
that was stupid.
Stood up, he was suspended. And Nick players got suspended because they just stood up. I mean, how stupid.
Well, there's got to be a little subjectivity there. You can't just, Anyway, this guy, by the way, I went to look for this, the highlight of this to show on my show yesterday morning. Couldn't find that one, but I found like 6 other clips of him doing the same thing and having a hissy fit when he got hit. This guy, he's got to change his whole attitude in my mind. But
well, I don't see how much he stays over the plate. I mean, he can't be hanging over the plate. He's crowding the plate.
His elbow's almost in the strike zone, and for part of his motion, it's in the strike zone. His elbow, his right elbow.
A lot of times it takes a guy's own manager to explain it to him. What always bothers me about baseball is this, Keith. You have a team who has a pitcher who deliberately hits someone on another team, and they start the trouble. And then the other team gets offended when they get thrown at because there's retaliation.
No, I expect to get hit.
They get offended. They should be mad at their own pitcher for starting, any potential.
But some of these attitudes, pitchers have to be able to pitch inside to be successful in the major leagues. They just have to, and you're going to get hit sometimes. And some guys, by the way, deserve to get hit. And I'm not telling you guys should get their heads thrown at, like they did in the old days, but some guys just deserve to get drilled, not just for hitting a home run.
A batter to me is allowed to crowd the plate.
Then he should
is allowed to pitch inside, but a batter should never deliberately get hit for crowding the plate. A pitcher shouldn't say, "Oh, you're crowding the plate. I'm going to hit you." He's allowed to crowd the plate, pitch him inside, and if he happens to get hit, so be it. Then he won't crowd the plate anymore.
You remember the armor some of these guys used to go up with? Barry Bonds would go up looking like Iron Man up there, for crying out loud. He had so much armor on his arm and his leg. They again, I think they eliminated some of that. I don't think you can actually dress like that. Actually, a more important incident I think happened. I want to say it was Saturday, where Duran for the Red Sox got into another altercation with a fan. And listen, he's one guy. I don't go for the players should just shut up when it comes to fans and don't get in altercations with them. But he's had several instances over the last year or so where fans have been hurling insults at him, not insults, but actually because he's had mental health issues. He's admitted to attempting suicide in the past, and fans are just taunting him with that information. And we don't know what happened with the Yankee fan, but I got to believe that's what happened. Nobody will say what he said, but it's happened so many times over the last year. I'm guaranteed that's what happened. And they removed the fan. Fans got to stop this type of nonsense. This isn't something to fool around with.
We grew up, Keith, and you definitely are going to vouch for this. We grew up with this mentality. Fans pay their money, they can say what they want. That's wrong. That's 100% wrong. Fans should be allowed to boo a player.
Yep.
You could yell at a player and call them a bum based on what they're doing on the field. That's fair game, as long as you're keeping it to the field. You get personal. You talk about especially something tragic in a person's life, their family life, their this, and you taunt them. That's a reason for the fan to get removed from the ballpark, arena, and maybe be suspended from it for a period of time. Fans should have limits. There has to be code of behavior.
I agree. I've talked about this a lot. We see it in basketball. We see it everywhere, pretty much. Basketball, I think it might happen even more than in baseball because the fans are so close. But that ticket does not give you the right to do anything you want once you're in the building. And we've seen a lot of it in basketball. Racial slurs hurled at people. Food has been hurled at players. It's got to stop. And this is a really serious situation. You have to take mental illness. And this is a guy who's come clean about what his issues have been. And he shouldn't be.
And that's very correct. That's very courageous that he has. And I admire him for that. And he shouldn't be subjected to any type of abuse,
100%. So Yankee fans, let's smarten up a little bit. You know, New York fans want to think they're the most sophisticated in the world, and they prove like daily they're not.
Did you see that fan? She lost her job. She had a great job for taking the trash can after the Knicks won the title, emptying it out. You know what bothered me the most about that, Keith? Not what she did per se, emptying the garbage. Okay, that'll get cleaned up, even though sanitation shouldn't have to. What did she do for her career, for her life? She had this great job, this great position, and she got fired from it. And now she's going to try to get another job, and they're going to find out what she did. Who's going to want to hire her? She's not going to be able to get as good a job. She messed up her future with that complete stupidity. It's one thing to celebrate.
30 seconds.
How are you celebrating getting a garbage can running, emptying it? I mean, I actually feel bad for her, Keith. I do.
Well, to a point, but your own stupidity and 30 seconds of stupidity is maybe, affected the rest of your life. It's not.
It bothers me. I mean, I'm hoping she has a chance to gain a position like that again in the future. Maybe make her clean up garbage for a year. Every weekend, one day, go in the park, clean up, just do something in community service, then get a good job back like that. But the way people mess up their lives, I do have compassion for her, believe it or not. What a dumb thing she did, and she got caught.
If that's a snapshot, right, in her life, and I say that is a bit harsh that her whole life is going to be affected for that. But it's a stupid thing to do. Maybe she's just stupid in her whole life. I don't know. But I'm going to save this one. Rick, I won't put that one up today. Normally I would, but today I'm not going to, just because I got into a lot of political stuff yesterday. I'm not going to post that one. So don't take offense. What I will put up, Rick did say that we were talking about the movie, and that For the Love of the Game is his favorite movie along with Field of Dreams. And I got to give you a chance to defend yourself against CA. And I believe
I'm not for old school baseball where, like Bob Gibson, where you can throw at a guy's head.
Not at his head.
Yeah.
Not at his head. But
but Bob Gibson used to do that, and they would glorify it. Oh, Gibby's tough. You want to know the truth of the matter is,
he only did it. He took his part of the play.
That today, intentionally threw at a guy's head, it wouldn't be only a reason to suspend him from baseball, but to actually put him in jail, because that would be a criminal offense. Goose Gossage tells the story when he was pitching for the Yankees against Texas, against this player, Billy Sample on Texas, who Billy Martin had formerly managed, who apparently didn't like. Billy Martin gave Goose Gossage a real flamethrower. He gave him orders to hit Billy Sample in the head with a fastball. Goose Gossage refused. He refused. But if that happened today and the manager gave a player that order and it was reported, that's a reason to ban that manager conceivably for life. For life. You're trying to throw at a guy's head?
No, I don't condone that. I don't condone the head ever. But there are times you.
But you do condone it, Keith, because you're against the suspension even for the manager doing that.
Not necessarily. I mean, he'll take
Oh, yeah, three-game
the flesh.
suspension. Give him a three-game suspension, Keith. That's what you say behind closed doors.
No, actually, I would say whatever happens to him, I don't care. I just think you should be able to police the game. The players and managers should be able to police the game a little bit themselves. If you get shown up or a guy's trying to take your part of the plate. So let's be fair for Gibson and Drysdale. They shouldn't have headhunted. I get that.
Yeah.
But what they didn't throw it. A guy hit a home run. They didn't throw at him just for hitting a home run. They throw at guys who are trying to take their part of the plate, leaning out over the plate, trying to take that outside part of the plate. And they'd hit guys. And I'm okay with that because they're protecting their territory. They were
The only time I condone it, let me tell you, the only time I condone it, if a player gets a hit off a pitcher, hits a home run, and for no reason the pitcher gets taunted by that batter.
Then
the next time that batter's up, if he gets hit, he kind of asks for it. I would kind of look the other way.
If you show up, you should expect to get hit. The next guy should be the guy that gets hit.
The next guy shouldn't be the next guy to get hit. Yeah,
no, exactly. That guy, wait for him to come back around and then get him. You remember when, because when we talk about this, I always think about the Roger Clemens, Mike Piazza thing. Remember when Piazza got hit in the head by Clemens? I don't think he hit him on purpose. I still don't.
I think he did hit him on purpose.
That's fine, and I think it's subjective, so I think you can have that opinion. Okay. I'm not going to necessarily argue it. But the Mets waited for months, if you remember, because they had an interleague. They were playing each other interleague later on at Shea, and they had one chance to get Clemens. They wanted to get him. They waited months until they played the Yankees in Shea Stadium, and it was that weird day where they played a game in Yankee Stadium and then they rode to Shea Stadium. But it was Sean Estes. I remember who was on the mound. They had one chance at him because they're going to get warned and then guys are going to get thrown out. And he threw the ball about 9 miles over Clemens' head, missed him by so much. I never seen a guy get missed that much when they're trying to.
But in a way, Piazza got his revenge because he hit Clemens really well after. And Clemens said afterwards, well, I had to pitch him outside. I couldn't get the ball near him. Clemens was actually intimidated after that or felt bad after hitting Piazza. I read in a book that Clemens went to the dugout after and was shaking and kind of crying because I think Clemens forgot himself and deliberately hit him on the head and then realized what he did and was all shook up. But Clemens said, I couldn't pitch Mike inside anymore, after what happened. So Clemens kind of that was his way of making peace. I'm not going to take your head on mano de mano anymore. I realized you ticked off at me and I don't want any more trouble. That was his attitude.
But he waited till the World Series and then threw a broken bat at him. So, I mean.
No, that was that. I believe that. No. I don't believe he threw that Piazza. No.
He's full of crap.
No. I think he threw the bat, to the side to get rid of it. That time, I'll condone Clemens for that. I don't think he threw that bat.
He said he thought it was the ball. He said he thought it was the ball that he had in his hand. So why would you throw the ball at the hitter? This isn't kickball.
No, well, this is old news already. But
it's one I haven't had a chance to talk about in a while, and I like talking about those stories, so I had to get it out. So Clemens, again, he loses some credibility with me there. Anyway, Rick's got one thing before we move on here. He was coaching his son's team, and his son was pitching and told him to throw it a player who slid with his cleats up. I did tell him where not to hit him. Okay, I mean,
No, I'm naive, Rick, when it comes to things like this. I coached JV baseball, and one of my players hit a home run. The next batter got hit in the back, and everyone froze, and my team was looking at me for a second in the dugout, and I told my batter, go down to first base. It wasn't intentional, and I believed at the time, no, it really was an accident. He got hit with a pitch. But then seeing the type of manager it was, his antics later, it became apparent to me it was intentional. And I remember seeing some of my players after the season. We bumped into one another. We were laughing, talking. And I said, do you think that was intentional when so-and-so got hit? And they said, yeah, of course it was. And I didn't think at the time, it's JV baseball. Give me a break. Some of these adults are complete idiots, that they would hit a, they tell their pitcher to hit a kid after, but after a home run. It's a little different in your case, Rick. If a player slid in with his cleats and he was trying to spike someone, but would you tell him to throw at the next kid who had nothing to do with it? And you got to be careful. You can't tell him to throw technically at any kid.
Well, he's telling him to throw at the kid that came in with his cleats up. I see. Now that kid, I would have looked for a place. I played infield. I would have looked for a place to low bridge the guy on a double play, or if he was playing infield, I'd have taken him into left field. Is what I would have done. I wouldn't have had.
And did the kid come up with his cleats up by accident, not realizing? There's sometimes more to the story.
Albert Moore, good morning, Albert. Good to have you with us this morning. Glad that you're having a blast this morning. Feel free to comment anything we talk about. Jack, elsewhere in the major leagues, couple of things. We haven't had a chance to address Carlos Mendoza being fired after something happens after our show every Monday and Friday. Carlos Mendoza gets fired. Again, the manager is always going to take the heat, but Carlos Mendoza isn't responsible for all the bad stuff going on in that side of New York, because David Stearns has put together a dysfunctional group of players. They don't play fundamental baseball. They don't field. They don't hit. They don't pitch. This team is just, and they don't seem to get along, a lot of them either. So Mendoza's going to get fired because the manager always gets fired. But how long does David Stearns survive here? And are they going to let him pick the next manager? Is that what they're going to do?
I think the problem was, to an extent, the owner, Steve Cohen, not getting as involved as he did, in the Pete Alonso situation. David Stearns didn't want Pete Alonso back. He's a Met icon, and they just moved on from him. That was part of the problem. Obviously, this was going to be a long year for the Mets with or without Alonso. Carlos Mendoza hasn't done a good job. I mean, the first year in 2024, he did. The Mets came within a couple of games of going to the World Series. Last year, they had a historic collapse where they missed out on the playoffs. The playoffs seemed like a lock. And this year, they've been awful, absolutely awful. And Keith, if we're going to give managers credit for how a team's playing, we've got to give them blame as well.
I'm not saying he's blameless.
Mendoza has not he did not do a good job this year. David Stearns seems to put together a fairly good team. In all fairness to him, in the beginning of the year, I projected the Mets to go to the National League Championship Series where they'd lose to the Dodgers. That's how good I thought they were going to be. I thought the Mets were well balanced. They had a lot of young players to bring up, that he made, some good moves. And the players just haven't performed. I mean, it's that simple. But the team lacks spark all year.
Where did he put together a good team? He put. Let me finish too before he answers. So he put two guys in the infield at positions they never played before, in Polanco and Bichette. He brought in a second baseman who was obviously on the backside of his career. He put a pitching staff together that looks like something out of independent league. Where did David Stearns do a good job here? He did a horrible job.
I mean, he made moves. Listen. He got Peralta from Milwaukee. Peralta hasn't pitched well. No one could see that
happening. The only pitcher in that team I would say is reliable.
From Milwaukee. I mean, raiding the Yankee bullpen and free agency has actually been one of the strengths. Devin Williams, Luke Weaver. He rebounded from losing Edwin Diaz, even though he signed Devin Williams right before, Edwin Diaz left. And Marcus Semien was an upgrade defensively, but he is on the downside of his
He's not even playing well defensively. He's not even playing well in the field.
And Polanco's been hurt. He's had a good bat. Lindor's been hurt. Okay, some of their young players, I mean, Ewing was considered a little bit of a phenom. He's leveled out. He's so-so. Bruce Beatty
hit a home run last night.
You're hoping he'd do a little better. He's been like so-so.
Oh, Batty's been that way for like 4 years now. He looks like a quadruple A player. He's too good for triple A, and he can't play in the major leagues.
And you don't know. And if you move on from him, he could thrive elsewhere.
He could. He's not playing well here, though.
You're scared to make. And, and maybe it was just a case of me overrating the Mets in the beginning of the season. But, when I predicted they'd do as well as they could in the beginning of the year, I mean, my son-in-law, who's a Mets fan, questioned me. He didn't think they were that good. But I didn't hear anything from you, Keith, in the, predictions about the Mets. I
said,
Jack, come on, get out of here. They're not going to be nearly that
said
good.
all of these things about the Mets in preseason. Now, I did think that they would finish second in the division to the Phillies. But I thought they'd overcome some of that. I really did, because I thought Bichette would hit better than he has. I thought Bichette would hit a little bit.
Bichette was, I thought Bichette was a little overrated. He wasn't worth $43 million a year, but the Bichette signing was a high impact signing. You had to figure it was going to help the Mets. Certainly Bichette was a high quality player for a lot of years for the Blue Jays. And Bichette's been so.
He's a good player. I like those
numbers.
He hasn't been good.
Soto's numbers have been decent. Soto's been okay. He hasn't been the problem. But he certainly, Soto hasn't played like a superstar, even though he's been, really good. Maybe because of the way the team is, we're overlooking things with Soto. But that said, Soto's numbers have been good.
I'm not overlooking things with Soto, because if I see him walk to first base one more time, I'm going to tell you that guy, the easiest thing to do in baseball is to run to first base. Anybody can do it. Anybody. But he can't run to first base.
Well, I don't like listen, we grew up in an era of false hustle where players had to run as hard as they could all the time. But Keith.
That's not false hustle.
No. They're issues. You're sitting on the bench a while. You cool off. Players do pull hamstrings. And unless someone can beat a throw, you've got to be cautious. I'm going to tell you this, Keith. If a player's running 100% all-out speed, you have got to be tremendously warmed up and stretched out beforehand.
Well, that's a problem if you're not doing that. Muscle. You should be prepared for that situation the entire game. I don't care what you have to do. Running and hustling, false hustle. I'm not talking about Pete Rose running to first base after he walked. I'm talking about guys costing base infield hits because they don't run to first base. And I watch it game after game after game. And Soto does it all the time. And half the league does it. Maybe more than half the league does it. Nobody runs to first base. And I see lots of plays where balls get booted and guys don't get on base because they aren't running. And you can't excuse that away.
I'm not disagreeing, but with Carlos Mendoza, on one end you're saying it's being made the scapegoat, but then on the other end, what was the overall attitude of the team? The bottom line is the team had no spark. You and I are on the same page completely as far as this goes, Keith. We hate to see managers and coaches fired in season. Give them a chance to straighten things out. And if they don't, in the off season, make a move. That's when you evaluate the performance, but give them the year. But sometimes you can't tolerate something, especially if you're an owner. The team is losing. It's wearing on you. And owners get blamed. Owners get made as scapegoats too. Steve Cohen is starting to be made the scapegoat, and Steve Cohen was the savior a few years ago. Met fans love having an owner who is proactive, who spend big money to get a winner, and Steve Cohen has put his money where his mouth is.
They haven't spent it well, though. There's a difference between spending money and spending it well.
They signed Juan Soto. Was that a good signing? In reality, no, but the answer is yes. Well, because the Yankees would have given him close to that amount. The Boston Red Sox would have.
Yankees.
The back end of the contract that's going to be a killer for the Mets. But it's a big signing.
Listen, the guy's a one-dimensional player, and he doesn't hustle. So Again, that's not money well spent
You
in my
want the
mind.
Yankees to re-sign him.
What have they won? What have they won? They're going to finish with 100 losses this year, probably, or 90.
No, the Mets aren't going to be that bad. They're not going to have 100 losses. Get out of here.
What's their record right now?
The Mets. You want a prediction?
I'll tell you.
I'm giving you a prediction now, Keith. I'm giving you a prediction. At the very least, the Mets are going to make a run to contend for the playoffs for wild card position by the end of before the year's out.
Yeah.
They will be in the wild card hunt before the year's out. Okay? There will be interest in the Mets before the year's out. Oh, can the Mets, grab a playoff berth, one of the 3 wild card spots? They're going to start winning enough for that to happen.
They're 9.5 out of wild card right now. 9.5 out of wild card right now.
Listen, even Alex Cora, he got fired early in the year as Red Sox manager. I think the Mendoza firing was a Steve Cohn move because that was David Stern's guy, Mendoza, I believe. So I kind of feel, maybe it was mutual. I shouldn't really say that, but the Mets felt they needed to make a move. What could I tell you?
You're on a pace for 95 losses right now, today, and they're probably going to.
But the record's going to change.
You're going to see guys out of here before the trade deadline, too. This team's not going to get better in the second half. It's going to get worse. They've already started. They unloaded Peterson last week. So I don't see this team getting better. And if they make the playoffs, are they doing anything in the playoffs? What's the point of this team trying
you can't worry about the playoffs later. When you 1 minute you have them losing 100 games, you're saying they're going to get eliminated, knocked out of the playoffs immediately. Get it straight, Keith.
No, I'm not giving you a break. I'm telling you, you're not listening to what I'm saying. What is the point of a team that's playing 400 baseball right now to even try to make the playoffs?
Terrible. I agree with you. And worse than being terrible, they are dull.
They should pack it in.
Dull. They're the dullest team in baseball at the moment.
They should look to unload some salary, which will be tough because of labor issues. Who's taking on salary when you're going to have a lockout in December? I don't know what you're going to do. I think this team is lost. I think David Stearns needs to go. He's not going to fire him. He should make him hire a GM is what he should do. And let the GM hire the manager. That's what should happen. And
no. The owner always has to assert himself as the owner. You can say to Nona, let your people do their job. Yeah, you let them do their job, but the major decisions, push comes to shove, has to come from the owner. I put myself in an owner's spot, for example, and even talking about another sport, if I were the Jet owner, next year's draft, push comes to shove, the Jets are looking to draft another quarterback. I say, no, you're taking Trinidad Chambliss. And if I do let them bypass Trinidad Chambliss, I tell them, if this doesn't work out, you're going to get fired. I'm telling you that now. If you take Trinidad Chambliss and he doesn't succeed, you won't get fired. It's on me. It's not on you. Understand? So if you don't take him, you better darn hope your guy succeeds big time. Because if I see Trinidad Chambliss lighting it up elsewhere, you're not going to be employed for long. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Now do your job.
I have to give you credit, Jack, because only you could turn a conversation about the Mets' struggles into getting Trinidad Chambliss into the show. Every show, you find a way to get Trinidad Chambliss in here. Great job. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, Trinidad Chambliss is going to have a messed up situation at Ole Miss, maybe with the coaching.
Draft stock.
You're in transition. You've got to tell me about that one, Keith. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it might be a little messy at Ole Miss. He'll perform, but it might be a little messy.
Yeah, there you go. Quarterback range.
Rick, exactly, Rick, because they don't know what they're doing. A lot of these scouts are showing they really don't. That's why he's not in there. He's on the top 6 now. He'll be in it once he starts performing, and they'll change their tune. And yeah, they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time.
Let me move off of Ed Chambliss for a second before I go away from baseball, because we talk about managerial changes. Because they don't often work during the season, as we know.
I'm going to tell you.
One has worked. One has worked so far.
I'm going to tell you next season manager.
Well, hey, all right. Go ahead. Who's the next Met man?
I'm going to tell you the next Met manager is probably going to be next season, Alex Cora.
That'd be a better hire than Carlos Beltran.
And I'll tell you why. Because I think the Phillies will do well enough and be happy enough to retain Don Mattingly.
He's got to want to stay too, by the way.
He'll want to stay, and his son is an executive with the Phillies.
He's a GM.
So I think the Phillies will stick with Don Mattingly. Their fan base will be happy enough with them. They wanted Alex Cora, the Phillies, but yes, Cora, after getting fired from the Red Sox, wanted time off with his family and so on, which is understandable. Assuming Cora's ready to get back in managing, the Mets would be a perfect fit for him.
I think he'd be a good fit.
And for them.
Remember, they had to talk Donnie into this job too, and he's done a great job. He's like 38-18 since he took over, and they're only a couple of games behind the Braves now. So they played very good baseball under Mattingly, and he's done a great job. And again, a guy I hate to see getting fired, Rob Thompson.
Good baseballman. I wouldn't have fired him, and I think the Phillies would have had the same success afterwards with Rob Thompson. Look, even Joe Girardi got fired as the Philly manager. We know Joe Girardi's a good manager, and we know that. But sometimes situations just, don't work out. I mean, like you, for example, Keith, if you had to come up with a list of the best baseball managers ever, Joe Torre would be on your list. And Joe Torre was dreadful until he got to the Yankees as a manager. He was pretty dreadful. He just wasn't good at all.
How do you do there? How do you do there? How do you do with the Yankees?
Yeah, the same as Buck Showalter would have done had he not been let go.
Well, we don't know. We'll never know that.
Listen. Torre turned out to be a good manager. He really did. And the proof is after he left the Yankees and went to the Dodgers, the first 2 seasons with the Dodgers, he took them to the National League Championship Series. I was very impressed with that.
Thank you for liking Joe Torre. Anyway, let's move on to a different topic. This one caught me not by surprise, I guess, because I think people are going to think, I don't know, maybe most people are going to be on the Bills side here. The Bills opened their new stadium last week. They'll play in this new stadium next year. And of all the players who played well or great I should say, for the Bills, one guy's going to be left out of any mention of him in their history, his history with them, and that's O.J. Simpson will not be mentioned or any part of this new stadium. There'll be nothing about O.J. and his great years in Buffalo. Now, obviously, things took a bad turn for O.J. in his life after that. The Bills did have him in his Ring of Honor in the old stadium, Rich Stadium, or whatever they called it at the end. You think should we just erase the history that he had because of what he did off the field?
How I feel today is not how I might feel tomorrow. Okay? This is the type of thing your feelings could be subject to change. O.J. Simpson was acquitted of murder in a court of law. And we're supposed to accept the verdict in the court of law, except people haven't. Let's be honest about it. The perception is that O.J. Simpson is a murderer. That's the perception.
My perception.
That's the perception the majority of people have. I mean, and he did lose a civil case, and he did serve 9 years in prison.
Not for that.
For theft or whatever. And what he did never would have gotten anywhere near 9 years in prison if the feeling wasn't that he got off with murder originally, with the court verdict.
Possible.
You're doing what the Bills are doing is for the fans. Honoring the past history. I don't want to go into a museum, a Bills museum, and see O.J. Simpson. Because when you see him, what's the first thing that you think if you're a Bill fan when you see O.J. Simpson?
He killed 2 people.
a great player. I mean, that cross, when you see him with a football carrying it, for a fleeting moment, you think, oh, he was a great player. They never won a Super Bowl with O.J. Simpson. I don't think they ever won a playoff game with O.J. Simpson.
They didn't.
Right. You think of a guy who committed murder. That's what people are going to think of, okay? That's the perception. And it's a very ugly perception. And you kind of don't want to see the guy there. I mean, if I see OJ, any picture of him here, there, anywhere, myself, there's a feeling of pure contempt for the man. Contempt. I don't give a darn about how great of a player he was, and he was one of the all-time great players. I'm not saying remove his records from the record book. They're there. He did it on the field. Leave the records there. If you want to list the all-time leaders in categories, leave his name, yardage, touchdowns. It exists. You can't remove it, but I don't want to see a picture of him. I don't want to see him glorified any more than you're forced to do. So I actually agree with the Buffalo Bills as far as that goes. And I don't think there's going to be any demand for OJ per se.
Yeah.
Because I think the people in Buffalo, I mean, they're not rallying behind OJ. Oh, preserve his legacy.
Nobody did. It's funny because originally when this happened, I had very mixed feelings. I felt there's no way OJ did this, right? I was in my 30s and not.
Yeah.
There's no way he did this. And it was probably, I still thought that probably into my 40s until then I realized I seen enough and I realized that the problem was the LA cops framed a guilty guy. And I still believe both things are true. I think they tampered with evidence and whatever else, but he did do this. So at the end of the day.
My feeling was when I first heard about it, I was in denial. Oh, no, not OJ.
Me too.
No, he had the best image anyone could have of the nicest guy, to this, to that. Then I put myself in OJ's spot. If I'm accused of what OJ is, and I'd see my attorney, I'd say, wait, what are the chances of the DNA being accurate? And they tell me like 97%. I'm on my hands and knees begging, use my DNA. Please use my DNA.
Right.
That's going to quit me. I want it. I'm not trying to hide my DNA.
He was obviously guilty.
I mean, listen,
should he
how many people out there, honestly, and he was acquitted in the court of law. So I can't say on the record that OJ is guilty. I mean, of murder. I can't say that on the record. He was acquitted in the court of law. So I'm not talking for myself, my feelings. I'm talking about perception of the whole public.
Yeah.
How many people genuinely believe OJ, was framed, that he actually didn't do it at this point? How many actually believe that?
Probably 12.
At the time, it turned into a racial issue. There was a racial divide.
Yeah.
On that. But come on, I mean, the perception is overwhelming that OJ, was a murderer.
I'm one of those, and there are more than just me, but I don't know how big a group we are. I believe both things are true. I do believe the cops framed him and falsified evidence, but I also think he killed those two people. So I think both things happened, which is very rare. The cops framing a guilty man. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's another issue. Okay.
Right. Anyway, those people, almost all those guys are dead now. So I don't know if I think Tom Lang or Ted, what's his name? Tom Lang, the one police officer, is the only one left because Furman just passed away here a few months ago. So there's not many people left from that case for sure. Kato Kalin knows made out like a bandit. He's got a podcast that does like a gazillion views and he's making money hand over fist. God bless him. So anyway, OJ won't be part of that. Would you leave OJ in the Hall of Fame, by the way? I mean, you leave him in the record books.
I leave him in there. Wow. Again, like I told you a little while ago, Keith, how I feel now is how I might not feel that way later. Wow. I mean,
It's funny.
but that means where do we draw the line once someone is in the Hall of Fame?
It's a lot of bad people.
Where do we draw the line as far as taking them out? I mean, a guy like, let's say hypothetically, and this would never happen. Let's pretend a guy like Jack Nicklaus committed a horrific crime. And when I say would never happen, Jack Nicklaus strikes me as the nicest guy in the world.
I would think that'd be unlikely.
And all evidence is he's a great, great guy. But let's say someone iconic with a great image like him or Arnold Palmer, all of a sudden there was an impropriety. Would you take them out of the Hall of Fame? I mean, Tiger Woods is a bad example because Palmer and Nicklaus are good guys. Palmer, passed away. Nicklaus is still here. But Tiger Woods, with his conduct, but Tiger Woods didn't do any. Tiger Woods.
He might kill somebody on the highway.
Reckless. He's been lucky he hasn't hurt anyone.
100%.
Tiger Woods isn't a hardened criminal per se. He's broken laws.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between being a criminal and breaking laws, I think.
Most of the time I fall on the side of the Hall of Fames are for what you did on the field, and there's a lot of bad people in all the Hall of Fames, whichever one you want to bring up. There's a lot of bad people in it, right? Racist.
Maybe go half and half. Leave OJ something in the Hall of Fame about him, but the big photo of him carrying the football, you maybe take down. But then again, think of this. You're leaving someone in the Hall of Fame who's a perceived murderer, but other players like Bonds, Clemens, Rodriguez are not in the Hall of Fame because they're perceived to have been on PDs. I mean, come on.
I'd put them in too.
What's worse?
I'd put them in for sure. So
what happened? Anyway. What happened? Okay. What happened? You're saying once someone is in there, but then again, what happens if what happened to OJ had happened before they voted on him? He wouldn't have gotten in.
He wouldn't have gotten in. No.
And
no
Pete
way.
Rose, listen, Pete Rose still isn't in the Hall of Fame. So what's worse?
Killing somebody, I would say, is worse than anything those other guys did. And I've always been on the side.
Listen,
those guys all belong in the Hall of Fame, and you put on their plaques that they, use steroids, they gambled on baseball, whatever it is. Put it on their plaque, tell their story, put them in the Hall of Fame.
Belichick's not in the Hall of Fame. Here you are, you're advocating for OJ, but Bill Belichick isn't in the Hall of Fame. Keith, were you one of the voters who bypassed on Belichick as he was snipping towards Bill?
What do you think, Jack?
No. But Parcells, you might listen.
I would not.
Possible? Let me ask you this, Keith. In all seriousness, is it if you were a voter, or you had a vote, and Parcells hadn't been nice to you, and let's say you had a couple of other interactions with Parcells where he just brushed you off like you didn't exist? Is it possible the first time you voted him on the Hall of Fame, the thought would enter your mind? Screw him. I'm not voting for a guy like him.
I'd like to believe I'm a bigger person than I know. I've always said Bill Parcells is a great football coach, just a horrible person. So I can separate those two things. I'd like to believe. I'm also a big advocate. People don't know what they're going to do until they're put in the moment, right? You don't know. Somebody attacked your house. So you'd say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run out and blah, blah, blah. You don't know what you're going to do. You might hide under the couch. Nobody knows what they're going to do until it happens. I'd like to think that I would do the right thing in every situation, and I would vote for Bill Parcells. Just would. Before we go, World Cup. USA plays tomorrow night against Bosnia. They should be a decent favorite, I would think, in this game. But their chances of getting, so that'll get them to the round of 16. Their chances to get to the quarterfinal, it's possible they can get to the quarterfinal, maybe even the semifinal, because they're going to play the winner of Belgium and Senegal. They're both, when you look at the odds to win, they're both ranked below the USA. Doesn't guarantee any victory, obviously, but they could win in the round of 16 if they win Wednesday. Obviously, they got to keep winning. That would put them in the quarterfinals. where they'd have to play. Now it gets a little tougher. They're probably going to have to play either Spain or Portugal in the round of 8 to get to the semis. Is there a chance the USA can beat Spain or Portugal, who are both rated well above them, and shock the world? It would shock the world if they got to the semifinals, would it not?
Well, Spain struggled early in the tournament, and I mean, what is considered the ultimate success? I mean, outside of necessarily winning the World Cup, like you look at Canada, they've made their deepest run so far, ever in the World Cup.
Never won in a round.
No one ever thought of Canada as any type of a soccer power at all. So there's real excitement there in Canada. And, the United States did make the quarterfinals, 20 years ago. And it's, you got to take it a game at a time. I mean, let's see how they look with Bosnia and winning that game. They'll be an underdog against either Spain or Portugal. I mean, that's for sure.
They'll be the next 2 games. They'll probably be favored, no matter. I would think.
I don't think the United States, this squad, is going to get outclassed no matter who they play. I think they could hold their own with whoever, but to actually win this tournament, you never know, because it's like it gets to the point where it becomes one and done. This isn't the best, like 3 out of 5.
Well, Spain's the third choice right now, tied with England for the third choice to win. France and Argentina.
England struggled against South Africa a bit before. Yeah,
they did. But they won't play England. I think they could play in the finals. I don't think they could play them anywhere but there. It's Spain and Portugal that they would run up against in the quarters. One of them, I think. So
they'd have a better chance against England, I think.
I think so too. So anyway, we're all soccer fans now. I'm not a big soccer fan.
What would be bigger in Canada? Canada winning the Soccer World Cup, or Canada, winning, well, not Olympic gold, they lost out to the USA. Canada, winning the Stanley Cup in Toronto, Montreal. That's just the city. I'm thinking of the country.
Still be bigger. I think the Stanley Cup would still be bigger because they haven't won in 30-some years, 34 years.
I think the World Cup actually would be bigger in Canada because it would be it would be the equivalent of the Miracle Mets in '69 winning in Canada. Canada actually conquering the world and winning the World Cup.
Would the U.S. winning the World Cup be bigger than the Knicks winning the NBA championship?
That's a great question. What would be bigger? The Canadian country celebrating Canada winning the World Cup, or New York celebrating the Knicks? I can't imagine it being bigger than the Knicks, but no, maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to tell you why.
Nationwide.
Because, wait. A good part of New York, they're not basketball fans. They enjoyed watching the parade, but they didn't really care. They weren't emotionally invested in the Knicks. The Knicks just had to do with Knicks fans, okay? But Canada, it would be a country pride for every single person.
That's fair.
It would mean more to Canada winning the World Cup, I think, than it would mean to the United States winning it, actually.
I don't know. That's interesting. I bet that's an interesting question. Which country it would mean more to? See, we keep coming up with debate questions for you, Jack. I'm going to have to get a finder's fee. Anyway, before we go, we're going to be a little bit over, but I want to give you a chance. We had some boxing news this weekend. You got Glove Fist coming up tonight at 7 with Frank. What went on? What's going on in the world of boxing?
Yeah, I was at the Barclays Center last Saturday night. I was ringside covering it for my publication, actually, Boxing News Monthly, to see Boots Ennis stop Xander Zayas in 7 rounds. Tremendous fight, head-to-head action. And Zayas looked completely outclassed, getting knocked down in the first round. In the third round, he hurt Boots, had him in trouble. And the crowd that was predominantly pro-Puerto Ricans for Zayas, came to life, and it was a great slugfest. But Boots dominated for the most part, stopped Zayas in the 7th round. Boots Ennis is a special fighter. he's not going to lose for a long, long time. And he's going to establish himself, in my view, as like an all-time great fighter when all is said and done. He's from Philadelphia Boots.
Yeah, I saw some highlights of this fight. It was an interesting fight. I don't watch a lot of fights these days, but that was an interesting fight. One other story I noticed over the weekend is that Usyk is planning on giving up all his titles.
Yeah, but Usyk is still the world heavyweight champion because titles are won and lost in the ring. These are sanctioning bodies.
Yeah,
they'll make their own champions. And some people in the public a lot of people are going to go along with this silliness because sanctioning bodies say who's a champion. They're going to they're going to look at certain fighters as maybe champions who hold certain belts. But in reality, Usyk won the title in the ring. He's going to have to lose it in the ring. So Usyk is the heavyweight champion, It should be as far as everyone is concerned. But the reason he gave up the titles with the sanctioning bodies, it's twofold. He doesn't want them to tell him what to do. They keep threatening him, you fight our guy, we're going to strip you of the title.
Yeah, well, they've always done that,
right? If he fights one sanctioning body, top contender, another sanctioning body's then going to strip him of the title for not fighting their top contender. So he says, the heck with that. And he doesn't have to pay him sanctioning fees. He keeps the sanctioning body fees and let the sanctioning bodies find their own champions. And then Usyk could beat him later on if he wants to continue fighting. But Usyk is 40. He's old he's long in the tooth now.
Does he want?
I don't know why he's continuing to box. He should retire unbeaten. But he wants to continue, so he risks defeat by continuing.
Doesn't he just want one more big fight? Isn't that one of the reasons for giving these up? And he can set his own.
He's going to fight against Deontay Wilder, who is past his best, and Usyk should be able to handle Deontay Wilder at this stage. He'd be able to handle him at any stage, but that's a viable fight for him. And if that's his last fight, beat Deontay Wilder, retire, and look back with a lot of pride on his career.
Well, you can get more boxing news tonight at 7 o'clock with Jack and Frank Laterzo right here on the McGrath Podcast Network and other places as well. So certainly look for that. Jack, great job today. Everybody, thanks for the comments. And we'll catch you on Friday morning. Catch Jack and Frank tonight. We'll catch you again Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. And with all the news that's happened since we signed off here, something's bound to happen in the next hour because it always does after we leave. So everybody have a great week. Bye-bye.